Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Thank you guys for joining us once again.
Hi, you guys. Thanks for being here.
We love doing the lives. We love talking to you guys and hanging out with you. It's just so much fun. Honestly, it's great to be interactive. Wonderful.
It is, and it feels like we're moving into this thing where we're kind of doing disclosure updates regularly. I like it.
Yeah, it's one of the things that's always been one of my favorite subjects, and I just have always thought that we are not alone. From the experiences I've had since childhood. And, I think I've shared with you guys that, my dad was like one of those super quiet guys and, came across as being super logical, not, he didn't have his head in the clouds and what have you. But the one thing is that he always believed, he knew that there was extraterrestrials out there and that life was out there. And, he never got into detail, but he just, he had said that he did see things in the past, but he wouldn't really go into detail at all and share, but he just knew it. And he was brought up Catholic. He went to Catholic school his entire life, all the way through the end of high school, and then he went into World War II right after that. But, so he was brought up in a very, very super, super strict Catholic tradition, and yet he believed completely in extraterrestrials and aliens.
Well, he had very good reason to, I'm sure. A lot of us grew up with an inner knowing, and then at some point, usually in school, we're told that we're not seeing what we're seeing, we're not hearing what we're hearing, we're making stuff up, and they automatically dismiss you, and that's happened to most of us, I think.
Well, thank you, Dr. Enoch Metatron. Perhaps. Well, it was before that. Well, he did tell me of an experience he had with his sister and brother when they were young, and just they had seen stuff. So he never went into details. He was really really tight-lipped on that. And, my mom was also brought up extremely Catholic as well. So, and as we know, a lot of times when you're in those strict upbringing religious traditions, they won't entertain the idea of life elsewhere.
Yeah, and it's really hard, especially in that era, to admit anything because punishment was readily available. They were pretty hard on kids back then.
Oh yeah, well he would tell me the nuns would always be whacking him on the back of the head or on the hands with rulers. They were just, yeah, they were definitely very, very brutal. And physical punishment, actual, physical punishment if you even did anything remotely wrong, like say, look out the window when you should be looking straight ahead, that type of thing. Some interesting comments there, and Jimbo, indoctrinated. Yes, we are. We're so indoctrinated in society, in some areas more than others, most definitely. And, I do think we have most definitely disclosure underway, and it seems to be speeding up pretty rapidly. And so, the thought is, are we going to have disclosure in 2020? Is 2020, and we were watching a video by David Wilcock that many people said to check out. I mean, tons of people were saying, you got to watch his last one. You got to watch his last one. And so we did when we were driving to Vegas. And we had to make 2 trips to Vegas recently to get the camper. And so we had a lot of hours on the road. And so we were able to take in some videos. And, we've always in the, I guess, the alien community, alien conspiracy community, everybody's been dying for full disclosure for so long. And, perhaps we're going to get it. 2020. Think about the year 2020. 2020 vision, right?
2020 vision, that's a really good one. Yeah, why not? They are creeping it up on us. Little things are being dropped here and there. Like I always like to say it's like the frog in boiling water. It's so slow, yet it's there. It's not in mainstream, but it's mainstream enough. All the technologies they come up with. Yeah, it's coming.
It is. And welcome, Barbara Burnsett. So glad you made the live. And we love all you guys as well. And yeah, see, Barbara says 61 years and finally getting answers to things I already knew. And everybody was calling you nuts, even in school and church. And I've been watching the numbers change because, when I was growing up, maybe it was a third, 25, 30% of people thought there was life elsewhere. Just think about that. How, in my mind, how just ignorant were we in so many ways to think we're it. We're it. It's just us, and this is it. Everything in the universe, the multiverse, revolves around Earth. No, there's got to be so much life out there. There really has to be. And as we talked about, when you look into the Vedas and, the Vedic tradition, it talks about over like 100,000 different humanoid species alone. It's incredible.
Well, like, Barbara, what feels best to me is confirmation. I love confirmation because we've been put down for so long and we've been told something else for so many years. It's really nice to have a little backup. It's supportive to have people say, yeah, I've seen this, I've looked at that, and look what's in this book and in that book, and this is real. So yeah, it does really help with the self-esteem, self-confidence to have some backup.
I've always thought that, especially coming up in the Catholic Church, and that's what I grew up in, and in the background of my parents, one side was mostly predominantly Irish, and the other one Mexican and Native American. And obviously in Latin America, South America, the whole Latin world is very, very Catholic. And so is the Irish world, to a degree. And so, that was the background growing up. But I always just knew, as well as, again, because of my direct experiences, that there was life out there. And when you think about it, and I do think the Catholic Church knows exactly what's going on. I do think the Pope and the, top cardinals, they all know exactly what is really, really going on. And, we've talked about this before as well. If they're part of the control grid with misinformation, disinformation, it would make sense that they wouldn't want to let us know about life out there. If in fact, some sort of ET life is actually what's really in control of this planet, ET interdimensional as well, then obviously they'd want to dissuade that line of thinking. And really when growing up, so much of the sermons were really all about punishment and damnation, and you better do good, you better listen, and, whack, whack, that type of thing. And it was part of the whole grid, the control grid, which is breaking down incredibly right now. It feels like it. And lots of good comments in there. So, want to jump in with some of those. And so good to see all you guys here, as always. And let's just take a look at some of these things that we have up. Alien discovery in 2020. Experts remain skeptical, but enthusiasts continue search. And so this is out of a Vegas news channel. And, this is obviously the Navy videos that we probably have all seen so many times, in which we saw basically craft doing things that the Navy said they couldn't do. They didn't have the technology, but then later on, now we see all sorts of documentation and patents to make exactly the same sort of craft that they, have showed us here, that they say they couldn't duplicate, including anti-gravity. And, is this part of the disclosure as well?
Yeah, it's trickling out little by little. We'll get there. What annoys me though is that it's so slow. It's happening, but I would rather have it just happen like boom, there you are in our face, and it's just over with. But they make it almost undetectable. But that's, again, that's why we're here.
Yes, and love doing this stuff. So this was interesting. Hikers captured clear photo of very large gray alien. And, there's different types of grays out there as well. And so many times when we've been hiking out, especially in the desert, I'll catch something moving out of the corner of my eye. When I look straight on, I don't see anything, but I feel them. I could sense their presence. And, over here where we are, and this is curious too, we're going to jump into that. Over here where we are, there is without a doubt a ton of underground military bases. And then, of course, there's supposed to be so many different alien species as well. And if you guys did catch the last one by David Wilcock, Pete Peterson, which was one of his main guys, his insiders and stuff, had passed on back in August. But he was saying that if there's certain things that happen, like Trump getting reelected, that we'd have a full disclosure in 2020.
I think all of them, they all say that, if you elect me, I'll give you full disclosure. So it's just one more thing they can tack on to get a vote. Even though I wouldn't mind disclosure, I don't even vote. It's just sort of kind of horrible that they do that. They sell that because they know. I mean, it's all out there and they know. And, it's just more stuff to get a vote.
Could be. It could be, most definitely. Let's bring this up so you guys could see it. Now, of course we have Photoshop. Of course we can't trust anything we see visually, but, again, just you kind of go with the vibe. And do you feel this is legit? So, interesting. Group of expeditionaries stumbled upon a huge gray humanoid alien that was lying unconscious in the forest. The forest is a famous hiking destination. It's located between the mountains of Rila and Plovdiv in Bulgaria. And one of the members of the group discovered this strange creature. So is this just one of those, BS tabloid things? Perhaps. It's curious, most definitely. I don't know. Does it feel like it could be real to you, or do you guys think this is just BS?
I think this one feels a little in between to me. I think this creature is real. I don't know if somebody put him in that picture, but like if you have a digital camera, you can take pictures of orbs, and I believe because they're of a different vibration and those digital cameras just happen to catch it. So he feels real, but not.
Right. Yeah, I could go with that. There's video here as well. And so, have you guys ever seen this? When we know all about all this stuff on the dollar bill, but have you ever seen the alien's head in the dollar bill? You could see it right there. And so when they just shade it in a teeny bit, it becomes pretty ominous, doesn't it? Pretty obvious. What do you guys think of that?
Isn't that kind of telling about who's in control of the monetary system?
Yeah, exactly. And we know, obviously, New World Order's in there, all those things, all the symbology is in there, and we even have a gray alien in there.
We do. It's so creepy, and it's one of those things where it's hidden in plain sight. Can it get much more in your face? Oh, yeah. I'm sure it can. As soon as their cloaking devices stop working, we'll be able to see the ships. But this is so in your face.
It is. It is. And when we were just coming back from Vegas after picking up the camper, man, the clouds that were in Vegas were super low. And, man, it really felt like there was something up there. It had a vibe.
It was dark and dreary and solid, and I didn't like it. It just felt like the whole purpose, the whole reason it was there was to simply watch us, and not necessarily in a good way either.
It's weird. I'm trying to also keep track on my phone, and I can't see any of the comments that come on mine. I don't know if Cindy could work with it, just so I don't have to jump back and forth and see what you guys are doing. So again, we've seen so many different. Oh, great! Thank you, my dear. We've seen so many different pieces of art. I forget who it was I was watching that was talking about all that medieval artwork depicting, UFOs in the sky and things like that, in reference to Christ and Mary and the Annunciation, and then all the ET ships. And you got to wonder, why would they do that back in 1200, 1300, 1400? Well, just like this says, they drew it, and we see a picture of a bull because they saw it. They drew it because they saw it. Yeah, okay, that makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, it's kind of simple, right?
Yeah, and it's not like they had an etch-a-sketch. This was not easy to draw in stone. I've seen some of the glyphs, and it looks like they had some kind of a laser device or something to get these drawings in there. And how could it stay for so long? So it's not just some little kid playing with crayons.
Yeah, like Greg says, it's all hidden in plain sight. Easiest way to hide something. And there's so much evidence out there, and it goes back as far back as we go. There's just so much out there, from different cave paintings, drawings, the medieval artwork. It's everywhere we look, and it's pretty obvious. I mean, even when we just start to analyze like the biblical tales, and Moses being guided, and it's pretty, to me, it's really obvious. And I just think it's just makes everything makes sense when you think about it. It puts everything together. So this is Disaster Incredible channel, and again, what's photoshopped and what's not. This is most definitely a really unusual looking cloud that pops up here. Is it hiding something? Is it hiding a ship? What is up with this? I mean, some weird stuff we are seeing in the sky. And I think, again, a lot of what we see, probably the vast majority of it, is ours. And I have no doubts we have tremendous technology. I really think we do. I think there's a lot of things that have been put in as complete misdirection. Like, what if, the stars are not even as far away as we think they are? I mean, just that whole idea.
Well, they just came out a little while ago telling us that, oops, the moon is in our atmosphere. We're so sorry. And to think that they say they flew a spaceship up there and landed on the moon, and they don't even know what atmosphere the moon was in. So they totally contradict themselves left and right, stomping on their own feet. And they treat us like such idiots. I guess that's one of the things that upsets me so much, is they treat us like we are the stupidest creatures on the planet. And it's like cognitive dissonance. It's abusive.
Yeah, it most definitely can be. And some conversations going on there in the chat room. Always interesting to follow, and let's always keep it civil and full of love as well. One of the things that we see is so many people, you'll have a particular mindset, and perhaps it's very, very rigid and solid. And I think it's good to always be kind of flexible and always be able to take in new information and, allow it to perhaps open our minds to other possibilities, and one of the things that I've gotten from some people that were more fundamentalist in thinking is, well, who made the aliens then? Well, one of the things that's always hit me is we're multi-dimensional beings. We are operating on many different levels, different densities at once, and perhaps we made these vehicles for ourselves, because these are avatars, these are vehicles. That's another thing that's always made me feel like it just doesn't make sense to be racist in any way, shape, or form, because I might be inhabiting, or I might be, let's put it this way, I might be driving a Chevy, Today, tomorrow I might be driving a Dodge, and maybe it'll be a Honda in the future. They're just different vehicles. Same thing with bodies, avatars. They're just vehicles. Now, there is something to DNA and perhaps lineage and bloodlines and being tied into different ancestry as well, and perhaps being able to access those type of memories going back through the DNA. All that stuff's really interesting as well. I want to do a video today on epigenetics. I find it fascinating. We've gotten away from some of the longevity videos. I know they don't get as many views typically, but still important stuff to talk about. It's fascinating. We can rewrite our codes anytime. We can reprogram ourselves anytime. And, okay, Vino says we are aliens then. Yeah, well, the thought is we definitely have, well, we're probably mutts. When you get down to it, there was a really good equation. I'm not sure. I think it was William Bramley in his book, The Gods of Eden, said, when you look at all the life on Earth, you discover that there's one animal that's probably the closest to humans in that it has so many different variabilities to it. And that would be dogs. And so, of course, dogs are our best friend, man's best friend, right? And they have been with us for a long time, and we just have this synergy with them. Yet we breed them specifically for different tasks. And thus we have pit bulls, and we have poodles, and we have shepherds, and we have hound dogs, and we have rat terriers that all have different strong suits. And so it was an equation, he was equating that with humans because there's so many different species of humans out there as well, different races, although, we are most definitely able to interbreed. And as difficult as it might seem to be, you could have a St. Bernard and a poodle, or a Pomeranian. It doesn't look logical or feasible, but it can happen, and they can have offspring.
Yes, speaking of that, we have a dog here. Her name is Udi, and she is part boxer and part wiener dog.
And she is very cute and very unusual looking as well. And, Dr. Enoch Metatron says all men have part alien in them. And so when we look at, like, say, the law of one, and, I do, in my personal opinion, from all my studies, again, I feel it's a free will universe, although there are some species out there that impose their will on others. And yet I do think it's from Prime Creator, God's source. I think that it's intended to be a free will universe, and that's why we have everything happening that we do, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, it is. And, we are a mixed bag. I think that we are somewhat of a, I don't want to call us an accident, but, we are a creation, and maybe like on Westworld, they didn't expect for us to like get a consciousness all of a sudden or something like that. I don't know. It just feels like we're in a petri dish. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And because of the free will thing, they're not allowed to show themselves in many cases.
Okay, so Breakout from the Prison Planet says something tried to attack my throat chakra last night. So I say archons and cryptos are still here. Yeah, definitely. And we feel their presence a lot, at times, sometimes more than others. And when we do, we'll look at each other and I'll say, you know what, we were so busy. We didn't do QiGong for 2 days. We didn't do meditation and mantras for 2 days. And then we left ourselves a little bit open. Because, so many of you out there are getting attacked because you're waking up, because everything is coming online. You're realizing things. Your multidimensional aspect of your being is really starting to bloom and blossom. And so it's just like, all of a sudden there's a light on in a very dark room, and a whole bunch of dark entities just turned their heads and looked at you and hissed. Not to make a scary little analogy there, but it's kind of like that. And then it really gets mind-blowing when you think about the numbers of these darker entities that there has to be, where they can notice a single quote-unquote light worker, starseed waking up. But they do notice, when we wake up. And they don't want us waking up everybody else. They don't want that because a lot of them live off of loosh, and it's like taking their food source away.
It is, and it's also akin to like moths to a light. They see that light, and it's almost like a craving, and they can't help but move toward that light. So it's important that we do take care of our bodies, ourselves, our spiritual, our physical. Very important to me.
Yeah, yeah, and I saw a comment in there about diatomaceous earth and bentonite clay. We take them in conjunction. We did it yesterday. It was the first time in several weeks, but it felt like it was needed again. We were doing that on a regular basis, and then kind of gave it a break because Cindy was getting to the point where she couldn't stand looking at that brown milkshake.
I know it's pretty hard, and then it's like grimy. It's kind of like chewing gravel.
Exactly. So Melissa White says 2020 is not the year of the disclosure. They've always been here. Yeah, I agree. They've always been here. It's just a matter of saying disclosure in the point of view that it's going to come out in the mainstream. Like, what if the U.S., maybe disclosure is going to come through the military. So what if the Navy all of a sudden says, yeah, we need a space force because there's Draco reptilians that we're battling, and we have allies that are battling them. Because that was kind of like what David Wolcock was saying. And now, my personal take, I still feel suspicious of, like, say, David Wolcock, Emery Smith, Corey Good, all those guys. I think that they're giving us truth. However, I also think that I still feel like they're working for the military-industrial complex. I just feel like that. And I don't doubt that there is a real battle going on between the MIC and the banking cabal who has been in charge, going through the 13 families that many of you guys know about. That word that begins with an I, ends with an I, has a couple L's and a U in there. So I think that there is perhaps a power struggle, or it might all be just a ruse, and maybe it's made to look like it's a power struggle, but it's part of the bigger plan that they have going on.
Yeah, they say all the world's a stage and we're just merely players in it, and a bunch of puppets, and that could very well be. I have trouble defining those guys though, the cabal and the MIC. Like, what's the difference?
Well, the MIC is like what Eisenhower warned about, and that is the military-industrial complex. This powerful group of, well, it's companies when you get down to it. This is a corporate world. It really is. And then perhaps it's a corporate solar system. Perhaps it's a corporate galaxy, and that's disgusting to think about on some level. But basically, it feeds off of the military and the military expenditures. And when you look at like the military budget of the U.S., it's gigantic. And then there's trillions missing, according to Rumsfeld, way back. He's like, oh, we can't account for $3 trillion. I don't know where it went. Probably went to that secret space force, along with so much other, money that's been siphoned off. And so you have that, which apparently it's made, and it's by people that have come together that used to be in the banking cabal, that have broken off from the banking cabal, where the banking cabal is those bloodlines that go all the way back to the Anunnaki, and perhaps to the Igigi or the Igigi, depending on how you pronounce it. And so there's that split going on between the aristocracy, and I always go back to, it's so much like the, what's Underworld, because in Underworld, the vampires, the pure bloods, they think of themselves as so superior to everyone else, and so there's this battle between the vampires and the werewolves. And so I could almost make an analogy of the vampires being the word that begins with an I, ends with an I, has a couple L's, an N, an M, etc., with the MIC, and the werewolves being more like the MIC. Or, we could take it different ways, but there's that thought of pure blood. It's like coming directly from the quote unquote gods, which again, everything has been so twisted and scrambled and mixed up. And, we've been given a lot of people believe in an either or, but in reality, I think there's more of the both going on, but just in different ways as well, if you guys could follow that.
Yeah, and each one thinks that they are the superior. They know the right way. They know how to do things correctly, and they're very righteous in their belief system, and they're willing to do anything it takes to have their way followed through with, which is scary.
Yep. I know there was a comment in there that they don't trust Wilcock, and I don't either, because I do think that these people have given us a lot of real information. And I think, again, that's part of the program. If you give somebody 90% truth, obviously you're telling the truth. So it's going to be more convincing. But if you mix in 10% of, salesmanship, perhaps, 10% of salesmanship, 10% of what the what the mass media has always given us, 10% of a little bit of BS, just to sway us over into the position that they want us to have, whatever that belief set is. It's the way to control through giving truth, but also just enough manipulation so that you could get them on your side, whatever that side is. And maybe that's going to be selling us on this cosmic battle. Star Wars. Think about Star Wars. We have a new Star Wars coming out in just a matter of days, guys. And Star Wars has been with us for, over 40 years, right? 50 years. It was 1977. It's shaped our mindset because now we can understand. I mean, if we didn't have Star Wars and Star Trek and those type of things, would our minds be capable of understanding that there's so many different types of life, and some of them are going to be pretty damn ugly to look at and might scare the bejeebies out of you?
Just like things I've heard about the Native Americans, they would look offshore and there would be ships there, but their brains couldn't acknowledge it. I think that would be similar to that, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, most definitely. And again, I do think that a lot of these guys that are coming out with disclosure right now, I think that they're working for the MIC. That's what my gut tells me, because again, it's going to be about getting us to think along a certain lines and selling us something. And again, you could see them trying to sell the Space Force. And we go back to Reagan's statement. Remember Reagan's statement? He said that he often thought that what if there was an external force, an alien force, then all of mankind would come together, to battle this force. And, we have, as we're going to see, let's jump over a little bit. I wanted to show you this also. So I think this is Japan, and the lady is watching first just one orb, and she sounds distressed. This one light, and then of course you have the clouds. Now this is the way the clouds looked in Vegas. The Vegas clouds are even darker, but it looked like they were cloaking something. And she sounds distressed. She sounds scared, scared bleepless, if you know what I mean. And then the second light comes out, and this is Terry's Theories, and they are also part of this family as well. So we'll show them a little bit of love, and I have all the links for you guys. So we have NASA astronaut shockingly hints at aliens in tweet about life forms. Michael Collins, he was part of the Apollo 11 mission in '69, has been actively engaging with his fans following on Twitter through the last few months, answering select questions. And he tweeted about life forms and other planets. We've had a lot of astronauts come out and just kind of say, yeah, it's out there. Life is out there. We had one interaction between two astronauts, and I think it was Neil Armstrong and was it Buzz Aldrin? And one says to the other, hey, look at that. Oh, yeah, there they go again. In reference to like a ship going by.
Yeah, like it's nonchalant. So I'm looking at this headline saying, the two key words are shockingly admits. Really, it's not that shocking to them. But when they feed this information to us, they make it seem like, oh my gosh, isn't that just amazing and incredible? And how could there possibly be aliens? It's just, come on, you guys. It gets old. After a while, it's just a little bit old. Of course, there's aliens. So I don't know. I can't wait for the headline. It'll just, it is what it is. You guys were right all along. We weren't very nice to lie to you your whole entire lives. And this is the real truth. I would love to see that.
Exactly. Yeah. Lots of comments out there. I guess Dave says Clinton said the same thing at one point. I wouldn't doubt it. I think they give us, again, they give us little bits. It's all right out there. And somebody was talking about Richie from Boston, because I know he is of the belief that all aliens are demons. And, it's, while I like a lot of his stuff, there's a lot of stuff I just can't watch, just because of that type of mindset that's just so, it's the full cup, scenario. And Greg says, amazing how stupid they really believe we are. Well, because we've been programmed, we've been so programmed. And like, again, if you had asked, take my mother, for instance, who is 90, when she was 20, she would have said, no, there's no life out there. There's no aliens. We were created by God and we're all that there is. That's what they were brought up and taught. And so when you think about it, when we look at the medieval artwork, it's obvious that the conditioning really worked. It worked really well. And perhaps people way back understood that these things were there. The Native Americans certainly did. Indigenous people around the globe did. Whether you were talking the Australian Aborigines or tribes in Africa, South America, North America, all over. They knew that there's other beings, there's other life forms. They all knew it. But then think about what we have now. We have this imperialism, which we could trace back to Rome, and we got the Catholic Church, and then we get these mindsets that have changed all that and really done a great job in covering up the truth.
They did, and this is a really shining example of that cognitive dissonance where we have these paintings that obviously have aliens in them, but they're telling us when we're really, really little, no, we're alone, so you're not actually seeing what you're actually seeing. So don't believe those lion eyes. Absolutely not. And it starts at such a young age, and of course our parents were indoctrinated and their parents, but the pictures they're in your face. They're right there. And to me, that's a pretty bad form of abuse. It's not nice. It's making you question yourself.
And we've brought these up so many times, but this is such a great question. Why are there spaceships in medieval art? Because this wasn't just painted now. This one, if I remember right, is somewhere between 12 and 1300. So, this is like 800 years old, and you got guys going around in craft while Christ is being crucified. And you got the angels with the wings and the people looking up into the sky, seeing the crafts going by. We see these as well in medieval times with their armor on. We see these giant motherships just hanging there. We see weird beings. How do you explain these? What did these people see? And this one is like my favorite. It really is. I absolutely love this one. What are they really telling us? Look at that lenticular cloud right there covering up a UFO. A beam of light coming straight on down. Where is that beam of light going? It's going straight into the crown chakra of Mary, the Holy Spirit impregnating her with Christ. And meanwhile, we have the Archangel Gabriel talking to a bishop over here, walking around with a model of a city. It's curious. Meanwhile, this guy's like, hey, look at that UFO in the sky. And the little kid's like, wow, look at that UFO. This guy's oblivious. And they're just carrying on. How do you explain this? How do you explain this? this is medieval artwork that is quite clearly showing that, there's control going on here. And perhaps this is a chess game between rival interdimensional extraterrestrial beings, and we're the pawns on the board. We are the pawns on the chessboard.
We are. I truly do believe that, and I can see that. And as they move a chess piece, up there, it does make its way to down here to the 3D, and other things are done. And, and like Chris P says, he said that other one was a big cookie, not a spaceship. And that's what we're being fed. We're being told to not believe our own eyes, that our eyes are lying. And it's a horrible, horrible way to be to a human being. It causes long-term damage. It really does. And it makes people question themselves at such a young age.
And, who is this Catholic Church luminary interacting with? Well, he's supposedly a devil. It happens to look a lot like a reptilian, and he's got a face on his butt, so that is really weird. And we see here a circular UFO again is in a lenticular cloud, perhaps coming down, and beaming light right there. And I think that was a baptism. I know we talked about the face on the butt. That's really disturbing. And so when we look at this, and we again see that alien face right in the middle of everything, staring at you. Just staring at you and just saying, ha, 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 I'm right here. I'm pulling the strings, It's pretty interesting. Laughing at Lawrence's comment there. Yeah, truly a butthead. That's funny. But it's right there. To me, the evidence is completely overwhelming, and yet some people will just say this is all just a deception of Satan. Well, I think perhaps the deception has been what has been the reality we've been conditioned to believe, and now we're seeing that all break apart, and now we're seeing the bigger picture. And again, Satan means adversary. So who really is the adversary? Well, it's the ones that have been running this control grid, the system that we find ourselves in, as we see all these lenticular clouds, which are, hiding beings in them perhaps as well.
And Barbara says, how can people not see this? And I don't think it's that people don't see it, Barbara. I think it's the distractions that they put out into the public. I think it's the school system. I think it's the food we eat. All of this closes our third eye, so many people choose not to see it, or, they're not even awake enough to care whether or not it exists. And this is part of like waking up your pineal gland, is knowing that the veils are there or not there, and that we're not alone. Yeah, so it's an unconscious choice. It's just not a nice thing that they're doing.
Yeah, most definitely. And so, it's just so obvious to me, and so fascinating. I mean, we could go on and on and on with these things. There's just so many of them. The evidence is just everywhere we look. And then we think about the Greek gods and stuff looking down on us, and, it makes a little bit more sense. It all kind of makes a little bit more sense. There you go again, hiding in plain sight. It's right there. It's all right there. That certainly looks like a helmet. Hey, there, look there. What do we got there? It's just so obvious. Again, there's so much evidence to it. Again, they drew it because they saw it. They drew it because they saw it. Okay, so we covered that. And we talked about Michael Collins. There's so many different ones. And so we see over here, this is out of futurism.com, newly discovered blinking space lights could be signs of aliens. There's a lot, and there's a lot that's been covered up, really obviously. So many things. But we know about the scientific cover-ups too. We know about the Smithsonian, dumping stuff that they don't want to be discovered in the middle of the ocean. Anytime you find, giant red-haired bodies, they get dumped.
Yeah, yeah. And Barbara says, she says, yes, uh, they don't care. They want to continue in their disbelief. It's easier. Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree with you more, Barbara. It is so much easier to just, look the other way, because if you start to admit that something exists other than what you've been taught, then you have to start going through all of your old belief systems. You got to start splitting hairs. And for some people, and I've heard people say this, it's just too much work.
And it can be just too much on the system in a way to have your whole belief system and your whole paradigm shattered. Think about how uncomfortable that is, and that's why you have people that are like that, and they want to convince everybody that they have the right belief system, and it's just because they can't take in any new information and possibly be wrong. But the cover-up that's gone on has been enormous, and the societal conditioning as well. And here we see aliens are out there. Astronomer has little doubt that we are not alone in this universe. And again, this one over on the side is talking about Michael Collins. We've had so many other officials. Paul Hellyer, who used to be the Canadian Prime Minister, he just came right out and said, yeah, there's aliens. Our government's been in contact with them. And I remember when Trump went in and after he got inaugurated, had his meeting with Obama, and he came out and he looked like he needed to be very, very close to the John at all times because he might barf. I think when they get the notification on what's really going on the planet, again, that shakes your whole belief system. So even a lot of the ones that are in power, they don't necessarily know the whole scope of things till they get to the, more at the very top.
Yeah, and at that point it's too late. And yeah, he was white as a ghost, and that tells me that that's like Draco energy in charge, because I mean, I don't feel that bad, but there's something that comes over me when there's that energy in the room, and it's like a dull headache, and it's kind of constant, and I'm just down, like my energy drops, and it's horrible. So I could imagine if he were actually shown the real deal, absolutely he would be sick.
Absolutely. And so I saw a comment in there about occultists. The occult is just what's hidden again. It's the things that they don't want you to know, the powers that be. So they get you paranoid and phobic and terrified. And, the thought that space isn't real, I guess a guy with a white beard floating on a cloud is much more real. And I guess maybe 6 literal days of creation, taking 1 literal day off is real, and the earth is only 6,000 years old. I think now we can see what really is silly, when we look at the bigger picture. And when we see all the relics of advanced civilizations that have been here on Earth, all the evidence that's all around us, metal spheres that, date back probably millions of years in different rock strata, the type of technology that was used to put some of these megaliths together that, we couldn't duplicate now. And they probably use sound to move things because, again, everything is vibration. We understand in quantum physics, it's giving us a good picture on how things really, really are. But, the conditioning sets deep and well in some people, and they just, can't open their minds sometimes. But a lot more people are awake, and a lot more people are realizing just how obvious everything is and how out in the open it really has been.
Yeah, some people get their brains stuck in a cog, and it might take a good old whack to get that cog moving, but luckily once it is moving, there's really no going back. So once you're awakened to the truth, there's no turning back. It's just some people might not be able to move that cog. It's just stuck forever, and that's okay. That's their energy, that's their choice. But for people who do want to know, that's why we're here, and that's why we have you guys and you guys have us. It's a very beautiful thing.
And so a great statement by Anti-Gubernare: fearing the occult is to fear pertinent knowledge that we need to thrive. And that's exactly what it is. There's a fear of the occult, quote unquote. Now, should we be fearing blood sacrifices? Hell yeah. We don't want any part of that stuff. No part of the negative info, no part of the, well, we need to know what's going on. And so much is being just exposed right now and put out into the open. It's just mind-blowing. But yet, obviously, anything that's lower vibrational is simply lower vibrational, and it's not going to lift us up, not going to put us in a good place. But, some quote-unquote occult knowledge, such as, understanding how intention and energy works, understanding the life force, chi, ki, prana, vril. I mean, that's been kept from us, totally. And that is occult knowledge in the West, until now, when everything is starting to come out. And we're starting to realize, hey, there's a reason why the placebo effect is more effective than most, pharmaceuticals. It's because it's about belief and intention. And that's all, increasing as well as we go into higher vibrations. So, not all occult knowledge is dark and evil. And in fact, you've been conditioned. We have been conditioned to fear all of it because it is, again, it's the Tower of Babel. Look. Hey, mankind's united. They're all as one. They're working together. They're not fighting each other. Come, let us disrupt them. Let us scatter them everywhere. Take away their ability to communicate with each other so they'll start to fear each other. And then we can manipulate them so that they'll constantly be at war with each other, creating fear and negative vibrations, which some entities feed off of. And it just enables control. So there you have it.
Yeah, and in the Bible, they paint it as if somebody has done a good thing by confusing man and screwing him up. And it's not a good thing. It's a very bad thing. And that's where things start getting twisted. And I don't know, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I really do. I question the Bible now. I don't look at it the same way that I used to. I think there's good information in there, and there's little bits and pieces that are valuable. But as far as the storyline goes, it's used to manipulate, and it's all about fear. And if you don't believe a certain way, you're going to go to hell, and that's no way to live. That's not love.
Well, as we've said before, it's 66 chosen books out of thousands. There were over 200 gospels alone. So there was an agenda underway and a mindset. And also, so much of the Gnostic texts and other texts that didn't go along with the official doctrine that was developed by Constantine and his bishops, they were all destroyed, but we found some after. And there's so much other knowledge out there and other, wonderful systems to look into. As we were showing you the Ramayana, which is the size of the Bible, and that's just one of the Vedic scriptures. There's hundreds. That's just one, and it's the same size as the entire Bible. And it says that Rama, who's viewed as an incarnation of Vishnu, which again, it just says that these human bodies are avatars. We come back again and again, and sometimes higher beings come back and try to help us. And so Rama comes from inner earth civilization. It's right there. It says that there is an inner earth civilization, and that's where Rama came out of to try to help us because these darker entities were ruling the planet. And so we get into the wars of the gods and the Vimanas in the sky shooting at each other. And we were listening, I forget who we were listening to, but they were talking about the giant mothership. It was probably Wilcock again in Antarctica. And interesting how the smaller ships in it looked a lot like Vimanas. And somebody else had talked about Antarctica. I've done a few videos on it, quite a few videos actually on Antarctica as well. It's fascinating to look into all of this.
Yeah, so we're being given just enough information to be slightly entertained, just enough to whet the appetite. But it's something. It's better than nothing. It's not that I believe Wilcox or his word is the only word. Not at all. No, I question him. I question all of them. But they do bring information to the table, and if we use our own good discernment, we can glean a lot from that.
Yeah, exactly. Lawrence of Aragon says all religions are BS and all religions can enlighten you. Yeah, it's up to you to sort it out. And there again, I think, honestly, I think we're going to move away from being quote unquote religious. And I think we're going to move towards being more spiritual beings and understanding that, everything is really, it's all about vibration and frequency. So when you think about it, it's all about where your heart is. Everything else is just, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It's all about your heart. It's not about saying particular words, believing a certain set of systems that some other human put together. Find your own path. Go within, find your own path. It's about individuality, breaking out of the mold, no longer being controlled by people and, other groups, thinking for ourselves. That's where we're going now. But yet, in the individuality and in the embracing the differences between us all, we will find unity at the same time. And that's part of the beauty of it. Most definitely change is coming. And it's just so obvious. It's so obvious. As we see here, Dr. Maggie Adarin Pocock. I have little doubt that there are aliens out there. So this scientist is again saying that. And it's only logical. It's just logical. It just only makes sense.
It is logical, and ultimately it will be a coming together of like minds and like individuals. And, they could try to rattle the cage again. When we get too close, they might try to confuse us again. But if there's enough of us out there, and say they do unplug the internet, then there's some of us that can keep spreading the word. So that's another reason why I love the channel and keep people together and share our ideas. Just in case we ever get disconnected, we're really not disconnected.
Yeah. And so, it's interesting because, again, a lot of people view it in black and white. Like, if you don't believe, for instance, in the blood sacrifice of Christ, why would you celebrate Christmas? Well, again, I think that what they've done is gotten us to worship the messenger instead of pay attention to the message. And that's been the whole plan. And so, why, it's because we get so indoctrinated that we just can't see anything but what we've been indoctrinated with. And so the message of Christ is very much the message of Krishna and so many other beings from all different traditions. It's the message of love, peace, and compassion, non-judgment, and lifting each other up. It's the message of unity consciousness. It's service to others, as is said in the Law of One, for instance. You're either in service to self or you're in service to others. And so, that's what it is. It's and they've been very, very effective, the dark ones, in controlling us by dividing us and telling us to go and convert everybody to our particular belief system. So that makes an automatic conflict right there. And that is most definitely what has kept this, it's a big part of what's kept this world in just constant conflict and not being able to find the unity. Because I always, think, well, would Christ condemn Buddha? Would Christ condemn Krishna? Would Christ condemn Guru Nanak and Mani and Zoroaster and all these other beings, Mithras, Dionysus, and on and on and on. There's would he condemn the workings of Lao Tzu, the writings of Lao Tzu? I don't think so, because all these beings are trying to lift us up into a positive reality and get us to look past everything that's keeping us separate. So it's the dark side that does that. It's the ones that don't want us to actually change this world, that twist things and convince us there's only one way, and it's our dogma. And, we get that in one particular culture, but they say the same thing to the people over in another different culture. So many wonderful spiritual revelations are then twisted. You have a great spiritual guru or teacher come and incarnate, and then later, they do the control grid people come in and they twist it just enough so that it creates a more more of a separateness between us, more division between us, and we start to forget about the actual teachings, and we start, only being concerned with, well, I have the one right way. You guys are all going to hell because you don't do a full water immersion in your baptism, or, you're not taking the body of Christ into you with the wafers, or it's just, there's all this dogma, and it creates this mindset where the actual teachings are kind of forgotten, and all we do is argue with each other over dogma. And so their plan works wonderfully.
It does. And even in this little teeny tiny town, there's like 3 different churches here. And all 3 churches, even though they say they believe the one true God, they all say that my way is the only way. Yet it's different than the church across the street. So that right there, that separatism, and who built all these churches anyway? There's like billions, it seems like gazillions of churches out there, and they're all just slightly different, just enough to keep us apart. And my heart is really warmed to see this group is growing and people are waking up. So that brings me hope, and I think one reason why I like to help wake people up is because I've been hurt by people who are asleep, people who believed certain things. And, that's sort of my empowerment, I guess, is to come in here and talk with you guys and see that you guys can believe different ways. That makes me feel just a little bit safer.
They Live Too says, and we're going to get back into this. Christ repaid your sin does not make sense. Nobody can prepay for your sin or karma. Now, if you truly believe in his teachings, and again, we've seen that the same teachings have come out of many, many different sources, teachings of love and compassion, oneness, unity, then when you're changed so that you're no longer creating a negative karma effect in your life, there you go. You're no longer doing that. And it takes effort. It takes a lot of effort. And, for instance, it's something that all of us are always striving with, but it's always in my mind now. So when somebody lashes out negatively at me now, it's just so ingrained in me to not lash back right away, to pull back. I'm not going to soak in those negative vibrations. I used to get into huge arguments, all the time, getting dragged into these debates, which would then take you into a state of being which is so anti-Christ, because you were just basically irritated, you're full of anger, you're full of all that, these negative emotions, which the thing is that we have to focus on is don't get pulled into those negative emotions. Just let it go. And, we're not going to convince everybody. And there's going to be people out there that are going to be manipulated and used for evil. Honestly, I had a horrible dream this morning waking up. I wasn't really asleep. I was in that in-between state. And I don't know if it was Hong Kong. Could have been Hong Kong. But what I saw was people getting rounded up and by the police and brought out into like an area that was a little bit more woodsy, but not really far outside of the city. And then the military came up and just, they kind of staked them in place. They kind of like, as if they had them handcuffed, and then just staked them to the ground and got out of the way, and the military just shot them all down. And it kind of hit me like it was maybe Hong Kong. It definitely was Chinese troops I saw. I don't know if it was Hong Kong or where, but they were just rounding up people and just eliminating them. And it just hits me like, who can do that? Who can do that? Because people were protesting and complaining. Who could do that? I mean, as far as a soldier, what is a soldier thinking? That he could mow down innocent people because they were complaining about a situation. But that happens. It really happens. Now, that is evil. That is so evil. And, we've been so sold on, if you want to talk about the U.S., what's American? Chevrolet, apple pie, joining the military, serving your country, going abroad, and enforcing the will of the corporations? I don't think so, but we're sold that. We have been sold that, and many people will go right along with it, and they'll carry out these deeds. And we know some people that have spent time in the military and have done, probably pretty atrocious things, and you could feel the danger around them because it's almost as if part of their soul is gone.
Right. Yeah, they've been corrupted, and the military, they do that on purpose. And very smart, extremely smart individuals can sometimes be the easiest controlled because they think so highly of themselves and they take their training so seriously, and that's everything to them. And they think they're doing the right thing, but they're the most controlled. And it's really sad, and it's quite sick. And hold on, I saw a comment here. Third Eye Jedi says gun control works when you're the one controlling the guns. Isn't that the truth? And I don't know, I probably should not have said that vocabulary word, but to me, I find that true.
And a lot of you guys saw that we have a new home, that we've got a camper. So one person warned me and told me to look up this one particular couple, which I did. And it just blows my mind. This couple in our age, Cindy and I's age group, doing kind of the same thing. They just bought a camper, they had a truck, and they were doing cross country, and they were down on South Padre Island. And, they found their bodies. Somebody was seen driving their truck with the camper into Mexico. The thought that somebody could just kill a couple, bury their bodies in the sand just to take somebody's truck and used camper. It's, how are these really human? It boggles the mind how people could do it just for money, but people can. And I saw They Live making the comment about that. It's very reptilian, it's very, very reptilian, but we are, in a reptilian society, in that, dog eat dog society that we are sold. And we're sold a form of evolution, where it's survival of the fittest. Yet when we look at it in some beings, some in nature, you see there's a high level of survivability when things work together. Like, look at how bees work together, how ants work together. Not dog eat dog and acting and preying on each other. Quite the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. It's very true. I'm really hoping by gathering this group and getting us together that we can make things just a little bit better. It does give me hope. It warms my heart every day to have you guys here who understand, who are awake, and that's just that much more closer to disclosure. I love these little disclosure things we do.
Okay, so we see recently retired U.S. Air Force general makes eyebrow-raising claims about advanced space technology. And again, this is out of The Drive, which is not a UFO magazine at all. This is all about military. I mean, this is all about military, really, and tech. It's all about tech. And so we have another top person coming out, Steve Quast. And now he says we don't have the advanced technology that President Trump wants, and wanting that the Space Force, But he says China does. So he says China has motherships and advanced technology, and they are weaponizing space, and so we have to weaponize space. And now there I feel that that's the usual divisiveness going on. This is typical. They want to create a fear. Again, there was the fear of the Russians, and they want to create that fear of the Chinese now. But in reality, there's a lot more going on than that. And this gets into some of the technology that China has. Wind tunnel tests of a space plane launching high-speed mothership aircraft. So this would give China the ability to rapidly and unpredictably access space with a reusable orbiter. And he does go into the fact that there's technology that you could basically go from one place on the globe to any other place in the globe in an hour or less.
Yeah, that's some pretty amazing technology. And, I know we have more out there. We have some of those creepy robots from DARPA. They do a lot of things. And we have the cloaking technology. When I saw that, that was jaw-dropping. It's like, oh my gosh, I kind of knew they had it, but there it goes. It goes mainstream. So that's another little piece of disclosure is that cloaking stuff. So now we not only see it, it's like we know that we know that we know they're up there and they can cloak, and it's sort of in your face again.
Completely. Absolutely. It's obvious. Now, a lot of people have talked about alien invasion, a fake alien invasion, Project Bluebeam, that whole type of thing. And I don't doubt that something like that is in store for us in order to create the fear in us that will go along with anything. Give away every last right we have. Just save us, save us, save us, right? And the reality is, whatever we see, it could be ours. And not even that it's a holograph in the sky, but these ships could be ours, the ones that they've hidden. It always hit me like, okay, so we went to the moon, and many people don't think that we went to the moon. Some people believe we can't go to the moon. Now we know the moon is in our own atmosphere, basically. Some believe because of the Van Allen belts we can't get out, that's some sort of control grid as well. Irregardless, I think that we have tremendous technology that boggles the mind. If we were on the moon so many years ago, imagine what the tech is like now. And then again, some believe that even when even when Kennedy first said we're going to get to the moon by the end of the decade, we already were there. The Nazis were there, and on Mars as well. So it's all just an illusion.
It is, and then they keep changing their mind about, what atmosphere the moon sits in and so on and so forth. Like it's something different every week. They can't keep their story straight.
Yeah, most definitely. So, there again, this is more of that disclosure, and they're disclosing a lot of things. One of the things that they're first going to disclose is the technology that we have. And here we're seeing so many of these articles. Water is common in the universe, but it might not be abundant on alien worlds. Well, yeah, so water is everywhere. It is everywhere. But perhaps not on the alien world. So we're not saying that there's any aliens out there. Yeah. But yeah, water is abundant. So the building blocks of life are everywhere. And then over here we see 2019 was a banner year for credible UFO sightings. Banner year for credible UFO sightings. And it's part of the disclosure. I do think, in most of our lives, it's going to be right out in the open. And, there was talk of them even like showing different alien races that are interacting with us now, as many as 50 or 35 to 50. What was it? Was it 35 or was it 50?
I thought I saw a book that said there was could be up to 57 races. There's a bunch.
Over 30,000 UFO reports now available at Canadian University. So the truth is out there as we see these. And again, anything like this, it could be us now for sure, because the Nazis again had similar stuff back in the 40s. So now enthusiasts and researchers will have a chance to comb through massive troves of documents. It's pretty cool. So over 20,000 UFO reports filed in the past 3 decades available, plus another 10,000 UFO related documents from the Canadian government as well. Lots of interesting stuff. Well, the U.S. government still doesn't recognize anything happened in Roswell after they came out saying, we got a flying saucer. Yay. Oh, sorry, it was a weather balloon. Oh, we misidentified it.
Yeah, we didn't mean to get so excited. Sorry, kids. Go back to sleep.
Exactly. But there's some amazing sightings in there. And, a lot of you guys have probably seen them. And here you have a depiction of it, and this is out of the University of Manitoba, so this is what we're talking about. And being too close to some things that give off radiation is not good for your health as well. So fascinating stuff. Most definitely fascinating. And, you guys, right now we got 200 people in the chat room. How many of you have had an experience? Like you've either seen a UFO or have had alien contact or interdimensional contact? I'm betting it's a lot higher than what most people would think as far as a percentage.
Yeah, and there was a time in my life where I wouldn't even remotely mention my experiences with them. And if I hadn't have had this channel, actually, I just wouldn't say anything. But I hope we're providing a safe space for people to come out and say, hey, yeah, that did happen to me, because that's what it's all about. Ultimately, it's about giving each other that time, that space, or I could say, yeah, that did happen, and it's okay.
Okay, so we got a lot of people coming out and saying that they've seen them. Cole says he knows Bob Lazar. Yep. So yeah, tons of you guys had. Chris Kringle's talking about the pineal gland woke up. And so I got a Christmas present early from Cindy, and it's monatomic gold. And so it's supposed to help open up your pineal even more.
You know what? We did both of us shot pretty mean games of pool last night.
True. It was the first time in a week that we played pool because we've been so busy. We took that. And we did take it yesterday, and we'll take it again today. Yeah, to see what that does.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting. We should probably take notes, maybe.
Interesting. Violet Mellon says she's been talking to people who live on stars my whole life. So, yeah, again, why do we have all this stuff that we have as far as the societal conditioning? Why do we have the fluoride in the water? It's all these things have been done on purpose to keep us away from the truth. And there's been fear instilled in us to keep us away from the truth. So we don't know what reality is, because you know what? We can connect with beings on other dimensions in other places. We can. All we need to do is just develop the pineal gland, develop our second sight, and we can do it. We most definitely can do it. And, Cindy's really gifted. She's very, very gifted. Her sight is incredible. Like last night when we were shooting pool, she just looked off to the side, and I could tell she was seeing something. And so I said, is it a ghost or what?
Yeah, it was little Annabelle. She's a little one that she follows us. She shows up here and there. It was interesting, though, because she was a little bit... she wasn't as bright last night, and I wonder if that has anything to do, like we haven't done our mantras in a couple of days, and she sits in our energy field, and it's like she gets brighter and she gets prettier. I don't know why, it just happens that way. It's curious.
Yeah, and so there's that whole line of thought that we can affect positive change in the conditions for beings on the other side through intention. So a lot of traditions have traditions of praying for the dead, and it could actually help them. Again, everything is interconnected. Everything is interconnected, and, the dead are never really truly gone. Nicole's asking if she's an empath.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
She is, to the degree where it's overload. And when you're such an empath, it can be absolutely overwhelming. But she has me now, so I could help her ground because she's gone through a lot. She's always been able to see dead people, and then she tried to shut it off, because they see her, and it's just like in The Sixth Sense where they follow you around.
They do, and it's been times where they're so overwhelming where there's like lines of them out here, and it's like a constant stream of energy, and they want to be heard, they want to feel, they want something done. I'm not exactly sure how we do it, but we can help raise their vibration to help them enter a little bit better place.
Most definitely. And so we see humming sound baffles residents. And this is in our Netherlands. And I'll let you guys play it just for, copyright infringement reasons. I don't like this sound. There's something about this sound that is very eerie. It just feels like a giant negative mothership in the sky to me. It doesn't have a pleasant sound to it. This is out of Strange Sounds, and I'll give you guys the links as always. But very creepy. It's like the beginning of a really bad sci-fi horror movie. Alien invasion. So states with the most UFO sightings. Do you know where they are? We've talked about this before. Best states. Number 1, Washington. Number 2, Montana. Number 3, Vermont. Well, you could tell. I mean, for one, population and, places where it's darker, it's way easier to see. Alaska and Maine round out the top 5. So proportionally, the most UFO sightings. Very interesting. Interesting, but obvious at the same time. I mean, boy, out here, when there's not a full moon, if we just go a little bit out of town, you see the whole of the Milky Way, and it's just spectacular. Spectacular.
Yeah, I wonder why Nevada is not on this. I mean, they're all over the place here.
They are, most definitely. And we said 85% of Nevada is owned by the federal government.
Yeah, and there's underground things all over the place. And, it's interesting when you're staring at the sky, you're just looking up, and all of a sudden this one star that you thought was a star, you're staring at it just suddenly shoots, to the left and then makes a turn and goes up. It's really interesting. We see that a lot out here.
Yeah. Anywhere that's dark. And New Mexico as well. There's tons of bases in New Mexico. I've gotten the exact same creepy feeling walking in some areas of New Mexico, especially heading towards the northwestern part. I think there's most definitely bases over through there. You could sense it. Just sense it. Yeah, Taos, the Taos hum. There's bases under there without a doubt.
Yeah, there's all kinds of good stuff that they keep from us. The underground bases, probably above ground bases. Who knows what's out there? And this just reminded me, as much as they lie to us, my daughter, she had it, and I'm not a flat earther. I'm not any earther. I'm just saying this was curious. When she told me about a dream she had had a dream that she was at a zoo under a huge dome. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of curious.
So this is an interesting video, and this is in California. Again, I think we're going to see more and more like this, and I wouldn't doubt that some of these are ours. Anything triangular, I think, is ours, pretty much. If we see anything large and triangular, or even smaller and triangular, that's our stuff. Without a doubt, some of the other shapes, like the cigar-shaped ones, I've heard people say those are reptilian. And a lot of times, the circular ones, they could be either grays or they could be ours as well. This one's pretty interesting. It looks like you got windows here. We've seen so many. And so, this is about Art Bell. And, I loved Art Bell. I listened to him for years, all through the 90s. And, he lived in Pahrump. So he lived in this area. And, obviously he died at 72. But it got me thinking about that infamous call. And I remember I was listening to it live when it happened. And do you guys remember that infamous call where the guy comes in, says he's a former employee? He was at Area 51, and he starts talking about, what's going on. And he's like panicked. It almost sounds like he's breaking down in tears and almost going to sob. It was an incredible. If that was a put on, he was a really good actor.
He did an excellent job. He gave me the willies, gave me chills, and I call those truth bumps. And I definitely had him with that call.
Yeah. So this was in 1997. And so, he goes, here's the transcript. Art says, "You're live. Hello." And the guy says, "Hi, Art." "Yes. I don't have much time." And then he's kind of like, "Well, let's try to understand if you are using this line properly or not." That was Art, because the line was up for just people about Area 51. And so the guy said Area 51. He said, "Okay, I understand. Are you an employee in the place you are in or not?" And he says, "I am a former employee. I was discharged a week ago for medical reasons." And Art says, "Former employee." And then the guy hiccuped. And he says, "I'm running across the country." He's like, man, I don't know where to start. They will triangulate this position very, very soon. So Art says, "So you can't spend so much time on the phone, so get yourself a move." So the guy goes, he says, "Okay, what we think are aliens are they're extra size beings with which the precursors of the spatial program put in contact. They're not what they claim to be. They have entered in many respects in the military bases, especially in Area 51. The disasters that are coming, the government is aware of their existence, and there are many safe areas in the world in which the population may be now are." And so, he sounded nervous. He talks about them being interdimensional or extra-dimensional beings, and the fact that they are down there, in these deep underground military bases. They are interacting with the military, and that there are, earth changes coming that are going to wipe out tremendous amounts of the population, and it really can be averted. So many people can be saved, but they're not going to do it. It was really something. And I'll give you the links because you could actually listen to it for yourself. And the guy sounded legit. If he wasn't legit, he was a really good actor.
Yeah, a very good actor indeed. And of course, I think there might be, somebody might try to come through and do damage control on this too, because this guy woke up a lot of people, scared the crap out of them, and yeah.
Yeah. So we see somebody says that it was confirmed they was an actor. I've never seen anybody's confirm it. I think there's opinions on it as well. But see, when you say something like that, then a lot of people will say, "Oh, okay, he was an actor," and they won't look into it. So it's good to look into things for yourself, because a lot of times people will put out one blurb, and a lot, you'll lose like 20% of the population. 25% people will say, oh, okay, I'm not going to look at it then. And that's exactly what a lot of people want. And we know in chat rooms, it's common occurrence that there's going to be people that come in that are actually working for the government. And they're actually part of this disinfo. And I'm not saying that one person was in this case, but that is part of it. We know that. We recognize that so much disinfo goes on. And so it was really curious, really curious and interesting. So I just wanted to bring that up. Known types of aliens and races, of which there are a lot. And so we see Agarians, which is a group of Asiatic or Nordic humans whose sources claim discovered a vast system of caves below the Gobi Desert and surrounding areas for thousands of years ago. They have established a thriving kingdom within, one which has been interacting with other planetary systems up to current times. And there's more information on a link there. So, we've talked about Agartha. We've talked about the inner Earth civilizations. I, did a video on that recently. Fascinating subject in and of itself.
That is, and it brings me back to that dream I had about being inside of Mount Shasta. That was a really real dream. That was really cool. And, I feel in my bones these places are real. It's just they're dimensional, so it's not like we could just walk into one as is.
Yep. And we see the next one on the list is the Alpha Draconians. So the reptilian beings who are said to have established colonies in Alpha Draconis. Like all reptilians, these claimed to have originated on Terra thousands of years ago, a fact that they used to justify their attempt to retake the Earth for their own. So maybe the whole situation with dinosaurs is not what we think. Were the dinosaurs part of their experiment? If dinosaurs were truly here and we had things like velociraptors around, 200 million years ago, what would they have, evolved into? If we don't know timelines really, because honestly, we can't trust the mainstream. Pretty interesting thoughts there as well. So it goes on. They are apparently a major part of a planned invasion, which is eventually turning from covert infiltration mode to overt invasion mode as the window of opportunity, the time span before the international human society becomes an interplanetary and interstellar power, slowly begins to close. They are attempting to keep the window open by suppressing advanced technology from the masses, which would lead to eventual Terran colonization of the other planets by Earth and an eventual solution to the population, pollution, food, and other environmental problems, being that the Terrans have an inbred warrior instinct. The Draconians do not want them/us to attain interstellar capabilities and therefore become a threat to their imperialist agendas. Refer to the L's. So, thoughts, sweetie?
Well, yeah, I've heard something about this, that they, about the dinosaurs, and it's not what we've been told. And isn't that our history to a T? I mean, that storyline keeps getting played out over and over and over, that things are not what we've been told, and they change constantly. It seems like just more and more and more. And I think that's another way they're doing disclosure, is kind of rewriting everything.
And so this, now jumping over to the L's, which are always fascinating. Giants are referred to as L's, El Anakims, based on the myth elder race, tied in with the ancient Hebrew traditions. I always found the thoughts of the Titans, fascinating. The Titans fighting with the gods. So Evadamic heritage, having a very tall stature. Nephs or Nephili, also known as Titans, not to be confused with the Elohims. L, parentheses, could be elite, perhaps, maybe from the Orion group, an outpost base inside the planet Mars. Now, the Orion group is talked of in the Law of One a lot, and it's basically the not so benevolent group that has really influenced the planet over the past several thousand years, maybe thousands and thousands of years. And so, the Orion group we think of as the Greys and the Reptilians, along with some humanoids, beings that have been conquered by the Reptilians as well.
Yeah, there we go. We got more information to go on. And Cobalt Blue says, I wonder if dinosaurs were actually food for giants. Seriously, a chicken wouldn't even be an appetizer. Yeah, it could very well be. So there's a lot of, this is why I love you guys. You guys always have really good input, and it helps me kind of try to figure stuff out on my own when I hear a different perspective. And, more than one perspective is always good.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff. So it gets into the Book of Enoch. And it talks, about, again, the fallen ones, quote unquote. And obviously fallen, could be simply beings that came from up there, down here. And, talks about giants, 3,000 cubits high. That's 250 feet. And there are some interesting relics all around the desert we have seen that give us, the thoughts of mud fossils. Pretty interesting, again. And then, of course, we have different giants. There's all different sized giants that we've been talking about. And I do think it's way too simplistic if you're just looking at, if you're only going to look at things from a biblical perspective, you're throwing out like 99% of the knowledge out there. There's so little compared to what's non-biblical. And, if you're only looking at that and you're not going to listen to what the Hopi said, you're not going to listen to what the Zulus have said, you're not going to listen to what the Aborigines over in Australia have experienced, the countless Native American tribes, the Cherokee, the Cree. I mean, it's just, if you're only going to look at one tiny little perspective that was given to us by the the ruler of the Roman Empire, trying to keep his empire together and trying to keep hold of it by controlling the thoughts of people, then obviously it's falling into the program completely.
Yeah, and how disrespectful is that? Look at the Hopi shaman. Look at all the other different races and cultures and everything else. And why would you just follow one single person and not look outside the book unless, you just were so asleep? And I gotta admit, I can't understand it now. I can't understand my own self because I used to be that way. You know what it was? It was out of fear. That's why.
Yeah, totally. And so, that's a belief system that, was part of my circle going back like 34 years ago. But it was just a small phase. As I learned more and more, I recognized there's a much bigger picture here. So, as more information came in, plus going within, that's been the biggest thing, really, is going within. Besides all the external, it made me realize, that was a very incomplete picture. And so, once it's just like, honestly, I'll share with you. It's like one year I was a really bad boy, and I was 8 years old or thereabouts, 8 or 9 years old. I'd say I was 9, and I was a really bad boy. So I went nosing around, and my mom had a closet, and there was a closet within a closet. And I thought, well, I wonder if there's anything in there for me. And it was Christmas time. And so I went in there and I snuck around and I saw my Christmas presents. So it was the hugest shock because I realized, oh my God, Mom and Dad are Santa Claus. Well, I'll play along for a couple years, which I did. I played along for a couple years and I liked kind of still the surprise. I liked to act like I still believed in Santa Claus, but I already knew Santa Claus wasn't real. And but still, I understood the love that they had for me to do these things and to treat me so well when money was always super tight. So they always, they were really good to me. But even though I knew it, there was a part of me that still wanted to believe because it was an easier belief system and it seemed to make things a little more magical. So I really wanted to believe. So I kept going on pretending for a little bit. Even though I realized, Mom and Dad are Santa. Santa's not real.
Isn't that the cutest thing? That's the sweetest thing that you were so good to your parents like that. I wonder when they caught on that they knew that you knew that they knew that you knew.
Yeah, right? I was either 8 or 9. But, that's what I think we have with these belief systems where, if we think that, there's only one right way, that's just indoctrination, and it's just not understanding the bigger picture. But that's how we've been controlled. So as long as we believe those belief systems, we become part of the problem and not the solution. And we become manipulable, able to be manipulated by them. And we see, how, the church went on conquest. And, it's just so obvious, obviously, what was done to the Native Americans, both Americas, North and South. And obviously so many people burnt at the stake as heretics. We see what they did to the Templars, as well. And it's all about control and power and greed and consolidation of wealth into the hands of the few. The Catholic Church could eliminate all poverty on the planet. Did Christ have wealth? No. He was an Essene. More than likely, he was one of the Essenes, and they lived communally. They shared everything in a community. Nobody even had personal possessions, just the clothes on their back. And so, what we see in the system is completely anti-Christ in spirit. And that's part of what we have.
Yeah, the system is really corrupted and it's in your face and we have to deal with it day in, day out, day in, day out. And, the matrix never really changes and all we can really do is go within. Trust your own heart, trust your own soul, take control of your body, get curious about your body, get curious about your health and start to awaken. And it is a slow process. It does, to me, it's I was awake when I was little, and then, I fell asleep because I have kids and I was in the matrix. But, as I awaken, it's a step-by-step process, and it can be a little bit scary at times. But, I have people around me now that understand me and that listen to me and that can relate to me, and it's just really nice.
Yep. Most definitely. So we see all these different races. And, the Anunnaki, again, the Anunnaki just means those from whom the heavens came. And so there are many that think that the Anunnaki are a whole, it's just like saying ETs. It's just like saying ETs because there's all different types of ETs. Arcturians is interesting, and Casey talked about Arcturians as well. And let's jump over to here. This is out of the Watcher Files as well. According to Casey, the Arcturus is one of the most advanced civilizations in our galaxy. And it's a fifth-dimensional civilization that's a prototype of Earth's future. And again, that gets to be about ascension. And so, obviously when we are, well, maybe not obviously, but when we're asleep, the thought is that we're actually more awake than when we're awake. And yet there is a higher self that's actually perhaps kind of dreaming right now this, reality. And in effect, it's just as if we could view it as we're dreaming our 3D existence, in these avatars and having that experience. Or we could look at it like an avatar in a game. We're choosing to play a game. We come in. This is an avatar. This is a persona. And we're here to learn and to grow from it. And also, to test ourselves. Who are we really? So we talked about Westworld in the past, right? And so Westworld, if you guys haven't seen the revision, the HBO series, these beings, these robots basically are coming alive, so to speak. Their consciousness, and their consciousness is growing. And so they're discovering that they're robots, but yet they're alive. And it's just interesting because people go into this matrix of Westworld in order to, test themselves, do what they wouldn't want to do, perhaps. Normally, that's what some people do. Some people have a darkness in them, so they'll go along with the darker energies, whether it's lust related or, bloodlust related. And then some beings are just not like that. They're more benevolent, so it's a matter of testing yourself. And so perhaps this is a big test for all of us that are here. Who are we really? And are we going to spread dissension and judgment, or are we going to really try to spread unity and love and peace and compassion?
I think that's really important, is to spread the unity, love, peace, and compassion and understanding. And what's the other word I was looking for? Just all around acceptance of other people's belief systems and how they think and how they feel. And, at the end of Westworld, it was the people that ended up, or the humans that were the gods that ended up getting judged because they were so ruthless and they were so cold. And that just means that there's always somebody or something watching, even when you think they're not.
Yeah. So, we hear about the Pleiadians a lot as well, Arcturians, there's Andromedans, there's, there are some benevolent too, because I think we hear of the malevolent so much more. We hear about the reptilians often. And there's definitely some benevolent beings as well. And the thought is that we're going from a 3D, 4D existence up into a 5D existence. But the real us is even higher yet. And it's interesting that when you start getting into 6D, it's when we see the channeled works of Bashar, and we see the Law of One, and we see other ones, that come through these channeled works, they speak of a collective, and it's we. It's like an individual still, but it's a collective. And so, the thought, like when we come together with our soulmate twin flame, I should say twin flame and not really put soulmate, because there's so many soulmates. But, more the intensity of a twin flame relationship, there's like this real unity that starts to develop because, we're from the same oversoul. So in a sense, there is a oneness that's already existing, this underlying oneness that's already there. Well, now, with you guys out there that are part of this family, so many of you, we're probably all from the same oversoul or bigger soul family group. And so perhaps not everybody, as the Law 1 talks about the harvest, those are going to go up into a 5D existence or up into the higher existence. It might not be a very high percentage that move on into more of a unity consciousness, although that's where we're going. So perhaps we are going to see a timeline split, which is why I did that with the second channel, because that's what I've gotten in my meditations. When we see this here, and the Earth kind of being two, that's kind of what I'm feeling, is that, not all of us are going to go up into the higher densities. A lot are going to redo, and stay on this 3D wheel because they haven't been able to get rid of the judgmentalism. They haven't been able to deprogram, and unplug from this matrix. Because if we're still seeing everything in such a judgmental way, a black and white way, and we think we have the only truth and all, you're still plugged into this matrix. You remember how Neo, they would plug into that matrix? Well, yeah, that's my feelings. And I think we need to unplug from the matrix to actually be able to, vibrate at a higher frequency. Because as we hold on to these negative vibrations, they're going to weigh us down.
Yeah, I think it's really important if I ever catch myself saying, making a statement, something that I think is true, I need to be really careful there and be flexible in my words, make a statement like, I don't know, I can't think of an example right now, but I'm sure I've done it a million times. We need to stay like water. We need to stay pliable. We need to be able to, and this is my opinion, here I go again, see, there she goes. But it is helpful for me to stay flexible in my belief system. Ultimately, I don't know what the truth really is, so I have to be able to flex my mind.
But you do know in your heart what the truth is.
My heart is my discernment. My heart is, that is my discernment, and it's mine. And it's mine to discern. So that much I can say, because I can't really go against my heart. I tried to do that, and it nearly killed me. So to follow the heart's really good, but ultimately to know that things can still change, and I might have to change my mind about certain things is a good way to be. You never want to be, I don't ever really want to be closed-minded, even though I still have closed-minded things I need to work on, and those are very, very defined in my life, and I do work on them. I think it's just a good way to be, is they call it open-minded, I guess.
Open-minded is good. And so I saw somebody mention Christ consciousness, and that's what I think it is. We could view it as Christ consciousness. And when you talk about following the way, it's not about blood sacrifice and dogma and rituals that have been given to us. It's about, what was the consciousness that he exhibited? Well, it was love and compassion. And, that is how we're going to get to a higher place. It's all about dropping our judgment, like taking that speck out of our own eye before we are taking the speck out of somebody else's eye. We need to take the plank out of ours first, and again, it's about the consciousness, because if we did exhibit that consciousness, we wouldn't have the situation in the planet we have. So to me, it's just pretty obvious, because more than half the planet comes from the Abrahamic traditions that have been given to us. More than half. We've talked about how even just a small fraction of a percentage could truly, if there was true change, a small fraction of the percentage of the planet could change the underlying reality. And so that has not happened. It hasn't happened. And so, obviously the systems that we've been given, the dogmas we've been given, are there in place perhaps for not a good purpose. And besides, it's just amazing how people can go into that and just believe things with, by the conditioning and not question. But then there are young souls too. There are what we would call young souls and old souls, and younger souls are easier to be indoctrinated and to be to accept the conditioning and just go along blindly believing without questioning. So how will disclosure affect the whole religious system? I think it'll be earth shattering. I think it'll be it'll just destroy some people's paradigms completely, especially when we start seeing beings in front of our eyes. That will be a pretty fascinating thing.
It will be, and it's totally okay for our perceptions to change with growth and be flexible as needed. And how else can we grow if we're not open to change? I mean, I'm totally a different person now than I even was a year ago. I've probably grown more in this last year than I grew most of my life. And it's because I've allowed myself to see things in a different light, see things in a different perspective, in a different point of view, which has really freed up a lot of my brain. So I might not always know where I'm at, but I sort of kind of do that a little bit on purpose because I want to remain. I want to keep my ability to view things differently.
Yeah, and there's most definitely okay, so Chris is talking about Krishna and Ganesh, and the other thing that I think has been done on purpose is we've been kind of given the thought line that perhaps all these beings are all Anunnaki, quote unquote, are all just I've heard people say that all of the different deities are ancient aliens, ancient astronauts, which is not the case either. Some of these beings, I believe, are actually the consciousness of the planets and the stars themselves, and they're on a higher density than us. This would probably be a good topic for a separate one, so maybe I'll hold off on that line of thought while we're still going on with the aliens, and we're going to try to wrap this up pretty quick because I do want to go into some other lines of thoughts, and it would be great to do another live on this. Maybe even tonight, we could come back and jump off on that because the interaction is great, guys. The interaction is awesome. As you see stuff in the chat, we go along with it and bring up different questions. This could really help people understand things, really understand things to a higher degree.
Well, I think it's important to explore the self, explore who you are, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. And then, while you're doing that, you can help people on your journey. If you go through something and you experience something and you figured out how to do this way, you share that with other people. You might save somebody 10 years.
So one of the places when we first take off, and we're going to go to, is Sarasota, Florida, just because I have some really good friends there. There was a tremendous spiritual community there that was so incredibly supportive. It really took me to a different place, especially a few people there in particular. And I want Cindy to experience it. And I would go to kirtans, which again, kirtan it comes out of the Vedic, the Hindu system. And yet the people there, most of them were born Jewish, converted to Christianity, and now would probably say, well, they called themselves Hind Jews. For most of the people that were there, they come from all different backgrounds. And we could be, singing a mantra that comes out of Sanskrit, and then we could, a lot of times they were really intermingled with different things. We'll do some things from the Native American tradition, from the Christian tradition, the Jewish tradition. It doesn't matter because it's the vibe. It's our spirit of love and compassion. It doesn't matter which system we use. The love I felt there was amazing, and the spirit of oneness and unity out of diversity was incredible. And that is really the paradigm that we have to move to, is basically, it's acceptance, because not everybody's going to convert to any one line of thinking. It hasn't happened yet, never will. However, as more and more gets revealed, I do think that we will become way more spiritual and less dogmatic, and that's going to change the world, and that's already starting as well. So we're going to be heading there and enjoying that energy. So guys, as always, thank you for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Come join us and be part of the family over on Patreon as well. There's different tiers there too. And so if you're interested in getting a Vedic astrology chart done, we could do that. That would be under the $25 tier. And or you could have a reading done, and there's a lot of other stuff as well. Go check out Patreon. Thank you for your support on Ko-Fi as well if you prefer to do that. And make sure you are subscribed to the second channel, EE Arts, because there's different videos that go up there. So the videos that go up there don't go on the first channel. It's not like a redundancy. As always, my friends, thank you so much for being part of this family, and we will be connecting with you guys again pretty soon. God bless, and namaste.
And namaste.